this is endemic to who Jack Sparrow is like when he gets an opportunity and he sees himself in threat, there has to be a really good reason for him not to run away. And usually that has to do with having some sort of scenario that he's bound to it, such as a debt to Davy Jones, right? So the fact that in this one he has opportunities to do so and just doesn't tells us that this is a different Jack Sparrow. It's not the same Jack Sparrow. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of A Lost Plot, the podcast by storytellers for storytellers, so that we can tell better stories ourselves. As always, I'm your host, Maverick, and today we have back with us our co-host, Andrew, to review the fourth in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. We are dealing with Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, the 2011 American fantasy swashbuckler film, which was written by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio again, but this time it was directed by Rob Marshall, compared to Gore Verbinski, who was known for the previous three films. But of course, Jerry Bruckheimer still had his fingers all over this one. So that is the film we're discussing today. Andrew, what are your initial impressions and rating for Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides?
A very different feel than the other three. A lot of people didn't like it. I'm sure we're going to discuss why.
I mean, I think that this film does not get the accolades that the previous ones did, and no surprise there that I fall on the same line and vein as that. I mean, obviously, I've been critical of this series from the start, despite liking some of them, and we had that discussion last week if you want to hear exactly what we were thinking on that. But this time, I think it is no better. If anything, it's worse, and I think my review reflects that with a solid 3.5, and I thought I was being generous.
I gave it a 2.6.
Like I said, I thought I was being generous, so there you go. Bro wanted to fake me out, pretend that he was so pro this film. So silly.
It was higher than I expected it to be.
Okay. There you go. We're going to get into the review, as we always do, but if you are curious what this film's about, Andrew, why don't you give them a short summary of this film?
This film opens with the Spanish finding a man who has supposedly found the Fountain of Youth, or rather, the chalices of some Spanish conquistador, which are required for the ritual at the Fountain of Youth in order to grant eternal life. Then proceeds to introduce Jack Sparrow, Gibbs, and he is kind of thrown into this quest after pursuing someone who's impersonating him. Turns out it is the daughter of Blackbeard. He gets stuck on the ship. He becomes basically enslaved to Blackbeard for most of this movie. He goes on a little quest, finds some mermaids, goes to an island, finds the chalices, teams up with Barbossa, doesn't team up with Barbossa, does his own thing. They end up at the Fountain of Youth. Blackbeard dies. Fountain of Youth gets destroyed. Lots of stuff happens. And Jack Sparrow leaves the woman on an island.
There you go. Nice. Yep, that's the summary. I don't know what to say about this film. I guess we're just going to get started with the opening scene, as we always do. You start off with that introduction with the Spanish finding the Fountain of Youth from the tales of a fisherman, and then, of course, you see Jack Sparrow re-enter the scene, this time trying to save Joshua B. Gibbs from the gallows by impersonating a judge. What are your thoughts on the introduction to this idea of the Fountain of Youth in this film and the reintroduction of Jack Sparrow?
It feels repetitive because the whole premise of the last two films was this idea of eternal life, and you get Jack Sparrow rejecting that idea. But then the whole premise, the whole theme of this one is still the question of eternal life. I also think the opener just lacks that absolute goated part where you get Jack Sparrow just being Jack Sparrow. This one felt much less than the previous ones did, where it was like so little and yet so much. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like you have some mystery here, right? With the chalices. Is it Ponce de Leon? Is his name? You get Jack Sparrow a little bit afterwards with the whole courtroom scene. I think Jack Sparrow shines much more when he confronts the French king, as opposed to the courtroom scene. But that could just be me.
I don't know. I don't know what you're looking for in saying that. I mean, I think that first off, the whole idea this movie starts it off on the wrong foot is, I mean, I don't think that it's clearly quite off at the very beginning, but you're definitely getting hints that we're not in the same type of Pirates film that we've been in previously from the start.
Yeah,
right?
I wasn't
you
saying
get
that the opener is bad, like right out the gate. I think my point is just very similar to what you're saying, right? In my mind, watching this opener, there are slight differences that are already like, okay, we're clearly doing something new now. And it doesn't hit the same notes that the openers for the previous films did.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that what you get in this one is the extravagance of him impersonating a judge and getting away with it because he has money and all of this stuff, and then he ends up getting double crossed again from the start. You're trying to get, a feel similar to maybe the last one, where in At World's End you have double crossing happening from the start in Singapore, and these people who are being backstabbed and betrayed from the beginning, maybe to some degree trying to get that. It was trying to go for that, right? I think that the opener is okay. Okay, we know it's the same character. We know who Josh and Gibbs are. We know that Jack Sparrow would do something like impersonate a judge. So it feels like all of those things are aspects to it. I don't know if it's the over exuberance of some of the things that they do in this film. I mean, we talked about in the last one how the progressive amounts of things that they do that just are maybe excessive in how big they are or how epic they are, whether it's people being able to keep their balance on a ship that's in a maelstrom is just, things that continually get more and more insane and shouldn't be realistic. But because it's Pirates of the Caribbean, you go, it's Pirates of the Caribbean. It's fun. We're going to deal with it. You get some degree of that, I think, here just from the start. And the film just progresses into leaning hard into unbelievability as these films continue to go on. So I think you get some of that from the beginning. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have a huge problem with it. It was just like, it was there. It wasn't anything shining like the Dead Man's Chest or like on at World's End. Excuse me. This is on Strange.
Yeah.
At World's End.
Yeah,
so there was nothing to sneeze
at.
Point.
Is like the openers for those two movies are just so good.
Sure.
They're very different openers, but they're just they do like exactly what they need to, and they just fully engross you in the film.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. Honestly, that just segues into Jack Sparrow. You see him in this one. He sees that someone is impersonating him and calling people to join their crew. And he's like, who the heck is this? I'm not doing this. Someone else is doing this. And he wants to figure it out. So he talks to his dad. He talks to Josh and Gibbs. He talks to a bunch of different people and eventually finds the spot and ends up fighting himself, except it's not himself. It's this Latina woman known as Angelica. What is your thoughts on Jack Sparrow's reintroduction to this film?
I'm sorry to say, I do not think he's a very good character in this film.
What? You love Jack Sparrow. What are you talking about?
I do. I think he, unlike the previous film, where I gave a staunch defense for him transforming as a character, and I think this film proves my point, by the way, he does not change as a character. I don't think he has compelling reason to be involved other than just he's along for the ride. Whereas in previous films, it was literally he's trying to outrun his fate. He's trying to get his ship back. Like he's got revenge as a motive. He's got I don't want to die as a motive, right? This film is just he's not really after the Fountain of Youth. Like he doesn't seem to care all that much about it. We're not really told why he doesn't. Matter of fact, we're just told that he has the map but doesn't seem to care. Which I kind of wish they went into more of. Like, why does he suddenly not care about the Fountain of Youth, even though he's found it? He kind of is just more of a caricature in this film than an actual character.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think that it's almost like I don't know, because it's weird that they have the same screenplay writers, right? And so you have the same minds, more or less, behind the story. I don't know if it's the directional input, because the director is different, right? So is there some reason that he took the story in a direction that made him feel more stock? I don't know. But I definitely agree with the sentiment that Jack Sparrow, as a character, at the very least, I feel somewhat similar to, even though I'm not a huge fan of At World's End, right? I still enjoy it. We talked about this last time. I feel like this film feels to me somewhat like a episode 7, 8, and 9 for Star Wars type scenario, where I'm like, this guy is so not what he should be compared to what we've seen previously that I don't even personally count it as this is part of the canon of Pirates of the Caribbean, just because what they do with the primary character is so fundamentally different to what we've seen in previous movies. I mean, Andrew hit on a couple of those, one being the idea that, like, he has no real reason to be there. So why is he there? Other than the inciting first point, right? It's like, somebody's impersonating me. What the heck? Why are they impersonating me? I want to see why. And then he gets captured, right? Up to that point, sure, we have some reason. But from there on out, he has opportunities to no longer be with Blackbeard's crew. And he sticks around. And it's not really clear why, right? I mean, Blackbeard sends him off to get the chalices. Why does he go get the chalices? If he's a normal pirate and just wants to live his life away from danger, he would just run away. There's no reason for him to come back to Blackbeard. Secondarily, let's just say that he saw that Barbossa wanted to kill Blackbeard, which he finds out later he does want to, right? Why doesn't he just tell him, all right, let me get on your ship. I'll show you where Blackbeard is. You kill him. We're good, right? There's no reason for him to, like, continue to aid his enemy who's holding him captive. And yet he continually just goes back to him. Like, okay, I'm not really sure why this is the scenario, but it was helpful for the plot, right? To push the plot along. So I assume that's why they did it, is that it was more convenient for the plot than anything else. You could make the argument that he's doing it out of love for this woman, which I think is probably the main crux of my issues with this film, but the idea that Angelica is this motivating force for him is, in my opinion, just incredibly not compelling in multiple ways. One, I don't think he's a feeling character to begin with, based off that he cares that much about the people around him. Andrew obviously makes the argument for that previously in the last film. But even if you buy Andrew's argument from the last one, right, and say that Jack Sparrow has genuine care for the people around him, in this film, he talks about having feelings for this woman only to then abandon her at the end of the film anyways and go off and do piratey things again. So the idea that this woman maybe was the reason that he was motivated to go through this entire plot and follow along in Blackbeard's footsteps to try to make sure that they got to the Fountain of Youth really doesn't, like, jive with how he ends up leaving things at the end of the film. So I don't think that there is any way to slice or dice this film and look at it and say that there was really a good reason for Jack Sparrow to be involved in this plot.
I mean, to play the devil's advocate, one could argue that he abandons her because he's grown throughout the film to realize that his care and affections for her were misplaced.
I mean, you could make the argument, but he's already come to the conclusion that he doesn't really care much about women's feelings in a genuine sense previously in the other films. And we see this because of the women at Tortuga. And he constantly is like, oh, maybe I deserve that. Maybe I didn't, but whatever. I'm going to go on and live with my life. So the idea that he's able to just move on from women is already a pre-established fact of Jack Sparrow. So him being caught up in this one girl specifically and then learning to grow past her is not necessarily a new arc for him.
I think also just the idea that you take a character like Jack Sparrow and you make him like this, you're trying to make him like emotionally deep, is so contradictory to everything about him. His whole persona is built around being unpredictable. Like, yes, I will still make the argument to my deathbed that he actually cared about Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann. I don't think that trying to make him have, like, as he says, stirrings about this woman, Angelica, makes him compelling. I think it gives you whiplash as a viewer for Jack Sparrow as a character. And when I watch this film, I'm, in my mind, the person who made it looked at Jack Sparrow in the previous films and said, okay, what makes him funny? He's witty, he's charming, he's super lucky, he's super smart, super flexible. Let's just take all that and then make him emotionally deep as well, but ignored all of the parts of Jack Sparrow that were motivators and driving factors, and they just took the surface level stuff, transferred it over, and then implanted their own, like, deeper, like, parts of what makes Jack Sparrow Jack Sparrow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and some of it has to do with the dialogue specifically that they choose for him, right? Because I think you would make the argument, actually, that Jack Sparrow is, to some degree, deep in his, at least feels for some of the people, even though the thing is, he doesn't express it in a normal way.
Yes.
If you're going to buy that belief of Jack Sparrow, which I don't really buy, but to play the devil's advocate, if that's how you want to view him. If that's the case, you can't have him say lines like, I'm going to confess this to you, Joshua Gibbs. I have feelings for this woman that I now see before me. Crap. Jack Sparrow just like wouldn't confess that. He would just be like, no, I'm fine. What are you talking about? And try to act like everything's normal, even though everyone else is the audience clearly see that it's not the case. You don't get that. And so
it's like the perfect example of show don't tell. Mm-hmm. And they're having Jack Sparrow tell the audience character. Yeah. Well, it's like, even in the instance where, like, my arguments in the last film for why he cares for certain characters, and this was our whole argument, is you have to read into his actions and his words and, like, actually look at what he's doing and go, okay, what does Jack Sparrow want in all of this? But in this film, he's just like, I want a woman because I liked her at one point. And that's like it. That's his motivator in this film. And it's like, I don't like it. He just lacks depth. They try to give him depth by force feeding it to you. He doesn't grow or change as a character. Yeah.
Actually, I would make the argument that if you do buy your premise, he does change as a character from the previous film because he devolves back to his original form.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess.
It's
I don't know, actually, because Angelica's clearly a piece of crap, and so he has no reason to care for her, per se.
I don't know. She seems pretty honorable. She wants to save her daddy. No, I mean, honestly, I think that there's just so many examples of things that we have seen from the first three films about who Jack Sparrow is and what he would do, that to see him acting differently in this film just makes no sense to me, right? You look at the first couple films, at the beginning or at the end of the first film, he jumps into the ocean and swims away. And earlier in the film, when he's trying to get away from the British, he takes Elizabeth Swann captive and tries to use her to try to get away, right? Later in the other films, when he's facing the cannibals, he runs away. Like, this is endemic to who Jack Sparrow is like when he gets an opportunity and he sees himself in threat, there has to be a really good reason for him not to run away. And usually that has to do with having some sort of scenario that he's bound to it, such as a debt to Davy Jones, right? So the fact that in this one he has opportunities to do so and just doesn't tells us that this is a different Jack Sparrow. It's not the same Jack Sparrow. I think a second thing about this, which frankly might be a little premature to bring this up, but I think it might be appropriate, is that for Jack Sparrow specifically, one of the things you see as a theme that's consistently brought up in the Pirates of the Caribbean films is the idea of freedom, because Jack is always trying to be free. You don't really get any discussion on that in this film. He kind of says it when he's talking to King George II when he's in his throne room that he wants to be a pirate, but then the rest of the film he pretty much just binds himself to Blackbeard's will because he's a lapdog to Blackbeard and Angelica and making sure they get to the Fountain of Youth only to try to kill Blackbeard in the end, right? And so the idea that this overarching theme that has been a big part of Jack Sparrow's motivations, the ideas discussed in the film, what Elizabeth Swann is thinking about, what Will Turner is thinking about, especially in relation to his dad, what it means to be condemned as Davy Jones, or what it means to fight against the British. Like, all of these ideas have some interlaced meaning behind freedom. And in this one, it's just not really an aspect of it at all. So I think that has a big motivation for why someone might watch this film and feel like it's not the same kind of film, because fundamentally the messages they're trying to convey are messages we haven't really made priorities in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
Yeah. I feel like they're kind of going for this idea of like this vanity of eternal life or something, but I don't really, you don't really get anything out of it, if that makes sense. It's like they tell you this is the message. All right, moving on.
Sure. I think that the idea of eternal life and the value behind it also has to do with the flip side of damnation, right? And this has to do with, frankly, the missionary.
Yeah.
And his whole thing is there's this somewhat interlaced arc in a weird, somewhat trite, loosely connected way to multiple characters in this film, having to do with the idea of damnation versus eternal life, right? And what it means to be damned. And in this film, what you have is the missionary who's championing the idea that anyone can be saved, right? Anyone has a chance to be redeemed from the situation that they're in. And you see, partway through the film, the missionary is dealing with a situation surrounding a mermaid, which he's fallen in love with, and decides, you know what? Screw you, Blackbeard. You're actually not savable. You are such a piece of crap. And that's when Blackbeard says, behold, a man who was once a believer. I think that line is interesting. But like, other than that, basically it's this idea that there are some lives that maybe are worth saving, maybe some lives that are not worth saving, and this idea of seeking maybe destiny around the Fountain of Youth, and like, can you escape your destiny? Or can you escape the judgment of God? Which is kind of a theme from previous films, I guess.
Well, but that's the thing, I think, is in my mind, why this film even falls flatter than it might otherwise is that it's literally just the themes and messages in the way the film is it's just a cheap copy of the previous film, right? Blackbeard is just a worse version of Davy Jones. You have the preacher and the mermaid are just worse versions of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann. Like, think about it. Will Turner, in some ways, represents some very similar things to what the preacher represents. I don't know that the mermaid really is very similar to Elizabeth Swann, other than the fact that she's a woman character. Maybe Angelica's the worst version of Elizabeth Swann, and Jack Sparrow is representing what Will Turner represented while simultaneously representing Jack Sparrow, and that could be another reason he's so weak in this film. Because they have to have their romance. Since they lost the two main characters that had a romance in previous films, they had to make Jack Sparrow fill that role. I think the ideas and themes were explored well enough in the previous two films and done so well that when this film comes out and does it poorly, it's like, well, not only did you do it poorly, we have the better version of it in the last two films.
Right. Well, it's like the perfect example is Davy Jones, because Davy Jones comes from this whole idea of do you fear death? Do you fear the dark abyss, right? All your deeds laid bare, all your sins punished, right? He's talking about giving an escape to what they are going to be punished for. And you get some elements of that, but only in simple, more trite concepts of it, where you talk about Blackbeard saying, I heard a prophecy that I was going to be killed by a man with one leg. And you go, okay, well, we know where this is going, first off, because guess who's the only person we've seen who has one leg? It's Barbossa. But then second off, it's like, okay, so maybe this is this idea of condemnation.
Maybe a crazy twist is if he got killed by Davy Jones.
I'd be down for that. I would have been down for that. No, but like you get a line like that and then they just kind of leave it, right? Versus you see this idea of judgment impersonating Davy Jones manifesting itself in the Kraken, chasing down Jack Sparrow with the black spot, which is the sign that he is condemned to die, right? And like there's all of these other ideas that further develop this theme and the implications of it and what it can be manifested as. Versus in this one, he says, I have seen a prophecy and I need to stop the prophecy. And then, okay, whatever. Well, and then you get other things. You get other, like, to fully complete this just briefly, is like you get other ideas that are also just as trite, which maybe add more questions than answers, right? And you get this, for example, with the Spanish, because the Spanish start off the film going, oh, the Fountain of Youth. We must find the Fountain of Youth. And then you go, okay, cool, they're finding the Fountain of Youth. And then they come to the Fountain of Youth and go, this place is cursed by God. We need to tear it down. And you go, wait, what? You just went on a mission across the ocean to break some rocks. Why? Like, why not just leave it hidden? Also, how did you just know where the Fountain of Youth was? But, you know, that's a different point. Point is like, there's supposed to be some sort of meaning, I think, behind the Spanish saying, oh, this place is cursed by God. We need to just destroy it. With this idea that, like, no one should be seeking eternal life. Maybe. But I think that it's just questionable because it's a line they throw out there and then just start breaking things. And that's that.
Yeah.
But sorry, you were going to say something.
I mean, at this point, we're kind of going on to the side characters. I think that Blackbeard's, his entire motivation for even being here is like so weak and lame in my opinion. Like, he was even like, I don't really think there's any way to redeem me, but my daughter wants to, so I guess we're doing this now. It's like, okay, you don't even care about this mission. Why are we here? And then Angelica's whole thing is, I want to save my daddy. Why? Why do you care about your dad? Like, there's nothing. It's just, he's my dad. That's the answer we're given. But it's also implied she never knew her dad until recently. Getting a little bit ahead of myself here.
True.
The next film explores Barbossa's daughter, which I think, even though I'm not a huge fan of the fifth film, I think does a better job of the relationship between an estranged father and daughter, right? This film is just like, long lost reunited chums. He's my dad, I'm his daughter. We're best friends now. I'm his first mate, and I'm going to save his life.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's trying to give this idea that, oh, we put a label on this, therefore you should care, right?
Yeah.
And you get this in the same way with Jack Sparrow and Angelica themselves, where they go, oh, we had a relationship before, so you should care about this. And I go, I do not. So screw this movie. Same thing with
Exactly.
Blackbeard and Angelica. You can't just tell me that these people care about each other, therefore I should care about them. But this is classic Disney, so, what do you expect? This is Disney in full swing, leaning into that let's just Disneyify everything, aka let's just screw it all up, because why the heck not? And yeah, you're just getting that fully manifest in this film in the ways that in Blackbeard are manifest and Angelica are manifest. Definitely with Blackbeard. I mean, the zombified guys are a worse iteration of both the cursed pirates in the first one and also a worse version of the cursed, undead, eternally damned members of Davy Jones' crew. So, there's just nothing intriguing about them.
I mean, I will say
it is kind of cool, but not that cool.
I think it's so funny now that I think about it. Every villain in Pirates of the Caribbean is just an undead crew.
Yeah. Yep.
First movie, Barbossa and the Black Pearl. Second movie, Davy Jones Flying Dutchman. Third movie, Davy Jones Flying Dutchman. Fourth movie, Blackbeard Queenland's Revenge. Fifth movie, Salazar and his ship and his group of undead. It's I don't think they're getting very creative with these villains. The first time, it was okay. Second time, massive upgrade. I'm here for it. Even though it is a little bit repetitive, you definitely change things up. Third one, okay, now it's just stupid.
Yeah, exactly. It's come on, guys, let's find something else to put on the screen.
There's gotta be better villains than just an undead crew, right? I mean, to be honest, the most interesting villains in this film, I think, are the mermaids, even though they're barely around, right?
Yeah, sure.
The fact that they're, just to get this out of the way, I wasn't allowed to watch these movies till I was basically an adult because I was told there are naked mermaids. No. And then I watched the first three and went, wow, what a ripoff. There's nothing here. Why was I banned from watching these? And then you see the fourth one and you're like, okay, well, there's the mermaids. Doesn't really show anything. It's implied. I'll grant you that. But also, they're infinitely more interesting than Blackbeard.
Yeah, well, the Siren song is something from the freaking
Greek mythology.
Odyssey. Yeah, Greek mythology. It's a thing, and so the idea, there was one of the few things that I appreciate in the series as a whole is that they're very good at taking these old mythologies having to do with the sea and integrating them into the stories that they're telling, dealing with the Kraken, Davy Jones, Calypso, the mermaids, the even the voodoo dolls to some degree, you could argue has something to do with that, the Fountain of Youth, all of these other things, integrating them together. They do very well with taking these old tales and making them renewed in the pirates fashion. So I didn't have a problem with them. Some of the ways they manifested them in this film were not that compelling. But yeah, sure, the mermaids were definitely more interesting than anything Blackbeard had to say on screen.
I think it could have even been interesting just to have this film incorporate all of these different myths around the ocean, right? You get the mermaids. I'm sure there's other things you could have done with sea creatures instead of making it. Granted, I don't know how you could make this effectively. I'm not thinking too deeply about it, but it's you have man against man, right? And there's different types of antagonists. You could have done a man against nature sort of thing, where the sirens are a part of that. The mermaids are a force of nature. You could have had something where now Calypso rules the seas, and now there's chaos on the high seas, and you have to deal with the supernatural navigating this life as a pirate. Right. I don't know what you do with that, right? But almost anything would have been more interesting than Blackbeard. It's so flat. It's not even funny. And it's just there's no depth there. It's just we saw the name Edward Teach and went Blackbeard. Also, if he's such a menacing force that all pirates fear this one pirate, why have we never heard of this guy before? Why has he just Davy Jones it makes some sense because he's like myth and legend. Like no one really knows if he's real or he isn't. But Blackbeard's existed where was he, by the way, during the council?
Yeah, is he not a pirate lord if he's this strong and intimidating to everyone?
Yeah, he's clearly existed for a while. Everyone knows about him. He has an undead crew, and people don't think magic is real. Like all of these elements of Blackbeard, just like why is he not? Why isn't he more interesting? Where did he come from? Why is he here? How did he get so powerful? Where did his sword come from? How can he control his ship and others' ships? There's just so many unanswered questions with his character, and then to top it all off, he's flat as heck. And the thing that's really upsetting is like I don't know how much you've read up on like pirate history. Blackbeard's a real character. Like he's a real person. Edward Teach is infamous in pirate history because of how ruthless he was. He is an actual menace if you read the history around him. In the battle in which he died, he was described as this raging bull who could not be put down. And the captain of the ship that finally took him out was terrified for his life because he watched this man get shot like 18 times, stabbed like a dozen, and wouldn't go down. He unloaded multiple pistols into this man's chest as he was charging at him and thought to himself, this is it. I'm going to die. I can't kill this man. Like, if you incorporate those elements into Blackbeard, now you've got a cool character, okay? You have a man who is there's nothing actually inhuman about him. He is just like possessed. Like that is his persona. They did incorporate some elements, like they have the burning portions of his beard, which he did do. And in his own words, which again, they didn't really incorporate it, they visually did. He would tell people he wants to have the face of a demon coming from the depths of hell to drag you down with him. Like that was his whole thing. And he has one line, I think, where he tells his daughter, like, if he doesn't kill someone every now and then, his crew will forget who's in charge. That was definitely a Blackbeard thing. Blackbeard was notorious for keeping his crew blackout drunk constantly. And the only reason why was because he said, yeah, that's how he controls them. He keeps them drunk and he keeps them happy with sex. And then they will do whatever he says. And every so often, he would just shoot one for no reason other than he's reminding everyone who's in charge. And he was notorious. Like I think it was only a few years that he was like truly ruling the seas. Like people were terrified of the Queen Anne's Revenge off in the distance because he was this absolute fiend. And he was not described as this cold, calculated, laid back old man who was like menacing, methodical. No, he was just, if he shows up, you're going to die. Like he is just a complete brute. But you got none of that. And so even outside of the Pirates of the Caribbean world, like they're incorporating a character who does have real world background, like and foundations. And they incorporate none of it other than the name Edward Teach, the ship Queen Anne's Revenge, and the fact that he has like smoking portions of his beard. And he has black hair.
I see the resemblance.
So I mean, like, I don't know. There's so much that I hate about Blackbeard, and I think he might be the worst part of this film for me. Him and Jack Sparrow easily are, I think, the two worst parts of this film, which is crazy because they're the antagonist and the protagonist. And so if they're the worst parts of the film, then your film's shot.
Right. Yep.
And it's like you took everything that was so good about Davy Jones, like easily, like he's easily top 10 villains of all time. I might put him in top 5 villains of all time. Like there is so much that he has going for him. his aesthetic, the music around him, what he represents, the themes that they're going for with his character, his ship, his crew, what he represents in regards to like the opposition for the protagonist. All of it is just so good. And then you get Blackbeard, who's just absolute buffoon. It's like, why would I ever watch this film when I have Deadman's Chest and At World's End?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think we need to rag on him anymore, other than obviously he's not the Edward Teach that Andrew wanted, and frankly, any of us wanted. So I think that he's not worth it.
Well, it's just like, it's not even the Edward Teach I wanted, because I don't think anyone really even asked for Blackbeard to be a part of the Pirates universe. But it's like, you used him, and I remember the first time watching this, I was like, oh, Blackbeard, this should be cool. Then I see some crippled old man, I'm like, okay, this is retarded. So, anyways, yeah, we can move on now. I mean, I think we already kind of talked about Angelica. I don't really have much more to add on to her.
The only things I would add on to her, which at first I thought that it was, I think what they were trying to go for with her, which was interesting in concept, which I think is a large portion of this film, right? They had ideas that were interesting in concept, but then in execution were just awful. Talking about, for example, Edward Teach. Could have been a great character. Didn't end up being it. I think Angelica is interesting in some ways because you get almost like an attempt at a reverse arc to Elizabeth Swann, where Elizabeth Swann starts out as this innocent woman who gets carried along into the pirate lifestyle. And you see in some ways Angelica is trying to do the opposite, where she starts as this pirate person and she's trying to like redeem herself by like doing well with her father. I think like could have been interesting, but they don't do anything with it, first off. So there's that. Like,
yeah,
ends up just dying in a hole, proverbially, like this whole idea. But second off, it's like you didn't. All of this was built off screen, right? Versus with Elizabeth Swann, at least we saw it develop over the course of 3 films.
Yeah.
So you can't expect us to trust or rely or believe this woman when you just told us this is who she is and what she likes and what she believes and what she wants.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, that's all I have on her. So
I think moving on and quickly going through like and some of the stuff I have written down for I think this film fails. One, you never really move Jack from a bad situation to a worse one. There's no like increase in stakes for him as a character. He's just kind of there. He escapes, he navigates his betrayals. But like, unlike Deadman's Chest, which leads to his literal damnation, there's no real stakes for Jack in this movie. He's just there. Which we kind of talk about, but I just wanted to bring up.
Sure.
He doesn't experience any sort of loss in this film. He has no emotional stakes, so how can he lose anything? No revelations. I don't really think there's any revelations in this film. I mean, they kind of go for it when they're like, oh, it costs a life to give yourself eternal youth, but it's so early in the film and so rushed over that it's like, okay, no one really cares.
Yeah, it's also like what materially impacts the film and how we're viewing it to be any different. Nothing really, right? You could make the same argument, for example, with Angelica being related to Blackbeard. But they reveal that early on, and it's like, okay, so what? Like,
I don't care.
Doesn't really change anything for Jack because he's still captured on the ship regardless.
It doesn't change anything for the audience either.
Right.
It's not like an I am your father moment.
Right. Yeah, it's just like because Jack Sparrow never has a reason to be here, we as audience don't.
Yeah.
There's no emotional reason. There's no physical reason that's like keeping him there for most of it, other than at the very beginning. And there's just no reason by the end for sure. Everything that you thought might be a reason ends up getting undone.
Yep. His journey by the end, it's like, oh, okay. He ditches the woman. Cool. You don't, it's serviceable, I guess is the best way to put it. You don't have the same ending as like his compass pointing off into the distance, or the Black Pearl sailing away, or him getting swallowed by the Kraken. I would make the argument that this film is not just lacking as opposed to the other three. I think it's just a bad film. I think there are enjoyable parts, right? I always find Jack Sparrow fun to watch, and there are some pretty good jokes in this film. Like they at least get that part right. You get some good humor out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That aside, I have no reason to watch this. Like, the most interesting part of this film for me is the priest and the mermaid.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
That portion, like, I find the priest character to be the most compelling. He's the only one that has like some semblance of reason to be there, a compelling motive to drive him forward through the plot. Granted, the way that his arc ends is a little weird, but like the at least his character has something going for him in this film. Because Angelica, no. Blackbeard, absolutely not. Jack Sparrow, nada. Gibbs, he's the same person he is in the rest of the films. He doesn't really have a ton going for him. And you don't get Elizabeth Turner, technically she is Elizabeth Turner now, Will Turner. You don't get their kid. You don't get Davy Jones. You have Barbossa, but I guess Barbossa does have something going for him because he wants revenge on Blackbeard. Oh, we forgot the Spanish, but who cares? Like, what are they even doing here?
That's exactly my point. Yeah.
We forgot about him, but that's because everyone forgets about him. Like, they just show up to do stuff. Like, they're there to provide an obstacle, and that's it. And guess what?
Yeah.
The British did it better in the last film. So once again, we have a cheap knockoff of a better version of that portion or element of the story. So,
right. Well, I got the impression that they were added simply to try and provide like the multi-dynamic aspect that we have seen in previous Pirates movies, right? Which was normally manifest in, say, Davy Jones, the British, the Pirates, and then also in the Pirates versus the Pirates, right? So that's how you would get 3 or 4 or even 5 factions going on in the same film, is because you had these contentious relationships going on. In this one, it's for the British and Blackbeard, and Jack's along for the ride. And then, occasionally the Spanish show up and say, hello, and then that's it.
The British aren't even a part of it. Wasn't it the French? Or was it the British?
No, it was the British because they were in England.
So it was the British. Right,
yeah.
Okay.
Or London, yeah.
And that's another thing that was upsetting too, is like Spanish conquistadors were definitely a thing and could have been interesting. Like, we've gotten to see the British and how the British the British and pirates, their relationship and how they work around each other. The Spanish would have been a very different dynamic if done right, because theirs isn't just we want to expand our naval force. It is, we are searching for gold. We're searching for treasure. Like, they are actively into the mythos of the sea and the world around them, rather than just the physical conquest that can be had. Anyways, I feel like we've harped on all the stupid things about it. I don't know if there's not really any other characters or themes to talk about.
No, not really. I mean, honestly, at this point, they made another one, surprisingly. Why do you think that is? I mean, it obviously had some sort of lasting impact.
I didn't look it up. Do you know if this film did well in the box office?
It did.
My gut feeling is it did.
Yeah, it did. It had mixed reviews when it came out, but it grossed over $1 billion worldwide.
Yeah, so...
And it was like the third highest grossing film when it came out.
Yeah, so in my mind,
2011,
right,
it was the third highest grossing film.
It's similar to like Star Wars Episode 7, where you have this franchise that is so good and people love it, right? It is legitimately has good value to the story, to the storytelling methods. The characters are great. People, not only are the characters great, it's a fan favorite. People love these characters. Then you come out with a new film. Of course, everyone's going to go see it. They don't know if it's good or bad. They just know what they've had before. And so they go to see the film. It does well. So I think obviously this film's going to do well. I remember correctly, there was quite a big gap between 4 and 5 as opposed to 3 and 4.
6 years, yep.
And that
it was a decent gap even in this one. I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember when the first one came out. I think it was 2003, but then it was 2006 and 2007. So I guess there was a decent gap between the first one and the next two. But this one came out in 2011, right? So 4 years after, at World's End. Excuse me. 4 years after At World's End came out, this one on Stranger's Tides, and then 6 years after that came out the fifth one, which what was it? Dead Men Tell No Tales, except it got renamed to something else.
Salazar's Revenge, but it's only on Disney Plus that it's named that.
Okay, yeah. Anyways,
not sure why. Yeah, came out in 2017. That one did poorly too, and I think there's a reason we haven't gotten another one. Well, I know there's a reason we haven't gotten another one. We weren't going to get one for a while, and then we had your favorite, Amber Heard, and the Johnny Depp trial, and Disney decided to distance themselves, and Johnny Depp went, have fun making Pirates of the Caribbean movies without me.
Right, exactly.
Like, as much as I hate on
the whole series.
Yeah, as much as I hate on his character in this film, there is no denying the fact that Jack Sparrow is the heart and soul of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like, they're not even in the same universe at that point. They get rid of it because he is what draws the crowd.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, there's something about, say, riding on the coattails of previous films, right? And I think that's what this one got, which is why it got such high financial, I guess, wins, if you will, right? Making $1 billion is a pretty stinking good deal, I would say, for making a film. And that's what they did. Turns out it was probably because the first 3 were good enough that everyone really enjoyed them and wanted to see another Pirates film, right?
Yeah.
Did it deliver on that? I don't really think so. But that's what we got. So, yeah, I guess that's probably a good place to leave it. You'll probably see what our thoughts are on the next one, but we'll save that for, the next one. And that's the pod. So, see y'all next time.